How's it going, everyone? My name is Rinzler here, back again for another video, and welcome to my yay, nay, or okay review of Spider-Man 2. Just as a go over of the rules of these type of videos, if you're a newcomer, my grading system for movies is a little bit more general. Instead of giving like A plus or B minus or 1 out of 10 or whatever, I choose to just stick with yay, nay, or okay. I give a yay if I like it, and nay if I don't, and an okay if I think it's fine. I think that I just want to keep things more general with my reviews, not overcomplicate things so much because then it gets into nitpicky territory. Um, so anyway, obviously in my last review, I reviewed the first of the Sam Raimi Tobey Maguire Spider-Man films released in 2002, and that film was a serious pop culture sensation at the time, at least from what I'm given to understand, because I was less than a year old when that movie came out. But from what I can tell, it was a huge deal when that movie came out. I mean, it was a lot of people's first exposure to Spider-Man outside of the comics or the cartoons. So needless to say, the expectations were very high for the sequel, from what I can tell. And I mean, if I were there at the time, I would expect the world from the sequel as well. Especially because something I praised the first movie about was that it saved Spider-Man's most iconic villain, Dr. Octopus, for the sequel. Something that the Dark Knight trilogy would later do by saving the Joker for the sequel. Because sometimes I think superhero franchises can actually be ruined by blowing the load on their big villain in the first film. At least in my opinion, that because then everything after that, the expectations are just going to be a little lower. Like Loki is the best Thor villain, and none of the villains in the sequels are as good as Loki. They kind of blew their load early with him. And same with by killing the Joker in the first Tim Burton Batman, everything after that was just going to seem like a less big deal. So I appreciate the fact that the Spider-Man movies had the awareness to save Doc Ock for the sequel. Because I think it was worth it. Doc Ock is an amazing villain. I actually think, as much as I loved and praised Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin, I actually think that Alfred Molina as Doc Ock is even better. Like, which is kind of crazy. I actually think he's a better villain than the Green Goblin because the thing about Norman is that he was always kind of an asshole even before he was the Green Goblin. But with Doc Ock, there's a real sense of tragedy with him because he was trying to do a good thing. What I mean? He was trying to provide the world with a new energy source, and he ended up being punished for doing the right thing. His wife died, and he got turned into, what as he calls it, a monster. And the city is terrified of him, and a lot of what he does is like the AI in the arms influencing him to do terrible things. So you really do get a sense of tragedy with him that you don't fully get with Norman Osborn's Green Goblin. Like, even when he's trying to be sympathetic, you kind of get the feeling like he's lying to save his own skin. But with Doc Ock, you genuinely believe that he's a good person that deserves forgiveness by the end. And normally I resist villains being killed in their first appearance because I'm like, oh, that sucks because they could have come back as like a recurring antagonist, like this ghost of the hero's past. But in the case of Doc Ock, I actually think it wouldn't hit as hard if he survived. I think him dying is what was necessary to the story, where sometimes Peter can't save everyone. And that was a theme in the first movie. He couldn't save Uncle Ben. And in a way, even with Green Goblin, he tried to save him, but Norman, tried to cheap shot him, tried to kill him when his back was turned, and Peter basically was left with no choice but to defend himself. That's the theme. Spider-Man doesn't want to kill villains, and that's what makes it so shocking. In the third one, when he actively tries to kill Sandman, which I'll get to later. But yeah, in this movie, Peter is trying to find a way to help him because he knew him before he was Doc Ock. So he's trying to get through to him, but unfortunately, the AI in the arms is making him too far gone. And I love the monologue scenes that Doc Ock has with the arms, where he's talking to himself, but he's also kind of talking to the arms. I just think that's really interesting. I like seeing villains self-reflect. I feel like a lot of newer superhero movies, the villains are just kind of generic in that regard. They kind of just, are the bad guys. Heroes must stop them. I kind of miss the days where villains could just reflect. You know what I mean? I also just like villains that are straight up evil, but I also have a soft spot for the tragic villains. And I think Doc Ock is the epitome of the perfect tragic superhero movie villain. I just think he's great. I think he's better than the Green Goblin. I think he's also over the top, like the Green Goblin at times. He also knows what kind of movie he's in. He knows, to keep things, elevated, and over the top, and not always be so grim and serious. He knows to have fun with it while still adding a layer of tragedy, which I think is hard to do. It's hard to make a performance fun and tragic, and I think Alfred Molina does that expertly. Um, let's see. Tobey Maguire, I think he's even better in this film than he was in the first. He seems more comfortable in the role the second time around. He can display more range in some ways. Not that he didn't in the first one. The scene where he actively gives up being Spider-Man is such a great scene. Uh, Probably the best scene in the trilogy, I would say. And everything leading up to it is amazing because I said in the first movie's review that something I loved in the first movie was how it beats on Peter. It almost punishes him for doing the right thing. This movie just takes that and goes way, way beyond the first movie because Peter cannot catch a goddamn break in the second movie. Like, every time he tries to do the right thing, it just blows up in his face. But it's different because in the first movie, people in the city still kind of hated Spider-Man. They didn't know how to feel about him yet. By Spider-Man 2, the people already like him. Like that's not really a question. Like, yeah, the Daily Bugle's trying to slander him, but for the most part, people like Spider-Man by the second movie. That's not the problem anymore. The problem is his personal life, how it affects the people that he cares about and the people he wants to be there for. Um, like he feels bad because he keeps laying down Mary Jane. He keeps making her promises that he can't keep. And Harry hates him because, he doesn't know that Peter is Spider-Man, but he knows that Peter knows Spider-Man because he takes pictures of him for the Daily Bugle. And he feels like Peter is deliberately stopping him from getting the revenge for Spider-Man, killing his father. And all that. And, even Aunt May, who normally loves Peter unconditionally, walks out on him when he makes the bold decision to confess to her his culpability in Uncle Ben's death. And, to be fair, later on, Aunt May comes back and apologizes, and that's a really great scene, too. But I like that it feels like everyone he cares about is not there for him in this movie or is against him actively. I actually like that. And in the original script for Spider-Man 2, I talked about this in a canceled movie video. They were actually going to have Aunt May be a lot harder on Peter in the movie. Like, when Peter would make the confession, she was actually going to kick him out of her house and tell him not to come back, basically. And then throughout the rest of the movie, she'd just be like petty and angry with him. And I'm really glad they didn't do that because I think silence sometimes is taken for granted in movies. Sometimes saying nothing can be way more powerful than saying everything. And I think they really get that. And I think Rosemary Harris's Aunt May just being shocked into silence and just leaving because she doesn't know what to say and she's not ready to confront the reality that Peter is partly responsible. I just think that speaks volumes. It's way more effective than if she just yelled at him. You know what I mean? I just think that's way better. I will say, James Franco, who I did not like in the first movie, and I don't really like in the third movie either, he's not bad in the second movie. This is easily James Franco's best performance as Harry Osborn. He has some of that woodenness I was talking about in the last video, but for the most part, I think he has outgrown that by the second movie. Not that he was a child, you know what I mean, but I think he has some really good emotional scenes in this movie. Like there's this really great scene where he's talking to his dad, the spirit of his father in the mirror, that I think is actually pretty well acted on James Franco's part, and also the scene where he's drunk at the party and getting mad at Peter. That's also a very well acted scene. So overall, I think James Franco steps up as Harry in this movie. Unfortunately, he goes back down again in Spider-Man 3. Spoiler for my review of Spider-Man 3. But yeah, I do think overall he improves here. The side characters, there's a lot of really fun side characters in this movie. Obviously we have J. Jonah Jameson. J.K. Simmons is even better and funnier in this movie than he was in the first. And there's this really great deleted scene of him wearing Spider-Man's suit and doing all the poses. And it was included in the extended version, but I really wish it was kept in the main version, just because it's so great. It's just comedy gold. And then there's also Joe from Joe's Pizzeria, go, or Joe's 29-minute guarantee is a promise, man. Like, yeah, he's memorable. Like he'll say things that stick with you. Dylan Baker's Kurt Connors. You really feel the disappointment in Peter when he keeps showing up late, and Peter's like, I want to be here, and he's just like, then be here. Look at you, Peter. You always appear exhausted. Like, you get the feeling he cares about Peter's well-being, but he's trying to be realistic, that Peter needs to be there more. He needs to commit. He's trying to help Peter. He's not trying to be an asshole. And I appreciate that. And Mr. Ditkovich is hilarious too. I think he's a hilarious character. He's constantly asking Peter for the rent, and that's become kind of a meme. But it's understandable. Peter probably doesn't pay him very much, or as constantly as he's supposed to. And of course, we get Ursula, who is a character that I've talked about on the channel before, and what, if I'm not mistaken, is my most popular video, where I talked about a scenario in which Peter gets with Ursula instead of Mary Jane, and everyone liked it. Like, everyone prefers Peter with Ursula. It seems like that's a pretty popular opinion. And that will actually get me into the one negative I really have with Spider-Man 2, which is Mary Jane. I don't like Kirsten Dunst as Mary Jane in this movie. It's not a matter of performance. I don't think she's bad at acting by any means. I think she's a phenomenal actor. It's more the fact that I found Mary Jane unnecessarily harsh on Peter in this movie, which is something that even like Chris Stuckman, agreed with me on. Because yeah, I think MJ acts a little entitled at times in this movie. Um, like, Peter doesn't actually owe MJ anything. Like, he friend zoned her at the end of the first movie, but in this movie she kind of acts like they're together. Like he owes her. Like, oh, you say you're gonna make these promises and then you're never there for me. And like, I don't really get it. Like, I don't get why she feels Peter owes her anything. I get it. Like, he's the only person not there for her when everyone else is there for her. Like, I get it. I get why that would be a little annoying, but like, they're not dating. Like, I feel like MJ was a little overly opinionated, maybe is a better word, in this movie. And she gets with J. Jonah Jameson's son, and she doesn't actually care about this guy at all. She's just using him to make Peter jealous. Which is so wild to me because Peter never even admitted to having a crush on her, really, in the first one. Like, it was implied, but he never like fully admitted it. So I just think it's wild that she's actively trying to make him jealous. Like, when Peter hasn't even said if he likes her yet. I just think that's kind of wild. Um, and she kind of, got with Harry as a secondary choice in the first one, which I was a bit more forgiving of, but in this one I feel like it's worse because she's fully gonna marry J. Jonah Jameson's son. Like, it's honestly just kind of crazy to me, the lengths Mary Jane goes to make Peter jealous and feel bad in this movie. It's actually kind of toxic when you think about it. And then in Spider-Man 3, it's made even worse because their relationship just gets much worse in Spider-Man 3, and apparently in Spider-Man 4 in the script, Mary Jane was actually going to leave Peter because Peter was going to cheat on her with Black Cat, which is so it seems like the writers always knew this relationship was toxic, and we're just kind of putting off the inevitable breakup or just falling apart. Because even before they were a couple, they were this toxic. Like, I just don't think they were ever meant to be. And even the last shot of the movie implies that, because like, she bails on her wedding, which, for the record, don't bail on your wedding. Don't do it like she did it. Like, if you're gonna cancel a wedding, do it in advance, okay? Don't be like the wedding singer, or this movie. But and, at least it gives us the MJ scene running where the Punisher is in the background, or Thomas Jane's stunt double, anyway. So that was cool. But yeah, it does give us this last shot where Peter swings off and she's like, "Go get him, Tiger," and it lingers on MJ's face and it shows that she's not happy with Peter leaving. It does a really good job of planting the seeds of what we're going to see in Spider-Man 3 of him still not being able to quite balance being Spider-Man with dating her. I think that last shot does a really good job of planting the seeds of that. But yeah, I do think Mary Jane, has no real right to be so hard on Peter in this movie. And I honestly do think it would have been a stronger story narratively if Peter made the active choice to be with someone other than Mary Jane. Not because he doesn't like Mary Jane, but maybe just because he grows up and realizes that maybe what he needs is different than what he wants. I don't know. I just think that would have been better. Like, I would have much preferred if he ended up with Ursula than Mary Jane. And I think, as far as I know, Ursula was made up for the movie, so that may have pissed off some comic fans. But from the way the story was going, I think it would have been better because everyone was really hard on him, but Ursula was there for him unconditionally. She offered him cookies, and people criticize that scene, but I like it. I like that there's a scene in the movie where someone's just unconditionally nice to Peter in a moment where everyone is kind of hating on him. Like I just think that that's really a really sweet gesture on Ursula's part and a very crucial scene showing that even though it seems like everyone hates Peter, they don't actually all hate him. He just has a lot of bad luck. I actually really like that. And yeah, I like all the build up towards him. Sorry. I like all the buildup of him quitting being Spider-Man. I like the fact that he gets fired from two jobs in the opening alone. He's failing his classes because he's never there on time. He can't be there for Mary Jane. He has to confess his culpability in Uncle Ben's death to Aunt May. He has to lie to Harry about whether he knows who Spider-Man is. All that, it all kind of comes together and makes him miserable and makes him not want to be Spider-Man anymore. Which leads to this hilarious montage. It's so corny with raindrops falling on my head. And it's this hilarious montage of him just kind of strutting and having fun and living his best life, and I love that. And that's of course what directly inspired the dancing scene in Spider-Man 3, which a lot of people don't seem to remember. They did a similar scene in Spider-Man 2, and that's why they did that in Spider-Man 3. I guess people just didn't like it in Spider-Man 3, but it seems like a lot of people forget about this scene in Spider-Man 2 though. um because it does actually narratively make sense to have that come after this one in Spider-Man 2. But that's neither here nor there. But something I do like quite a bit is that even after he quits being Spider-Man and starts doing everything that he's always wanted to do, he doesn't get the girl. Like, he gets with Mary Jane and is like, "I can be there for you now. Take me." And Mary Jane says, "No, like you waited too long. Like, I'm getting married." Which, like I said, for the record, I don't like that aspect, but I do like the thought. I like the idea that Peter, it doesn't automatically get the girl just because he's not Spider-Man anymore. You know what I mean? I think that's a good message, because I think a lot of times in movies they make like getting the girl way too easy. And, women are people too, they have thoughts and opinions. You're not just going to get them, and I think that this does a really good job of realistically portraying that. So I really like that. The fight scenes in this movie are also better because the CGI has gotten better, so they're not as afraid of doing some really big fight scenes in broad daylight and not just at night where they can hide the bad visual effects like in the first movie. Yeah, I just think the fight scenes are excellent in this film. Of course, the train scene is the best fight scene. It's iconic for a reason. It's amazing. And I love that it carries over the theme of the first movie, where even though it seems like the world is against him, the people are always, or at least mostly always, grateful to him. Like in Spider-Man 2, when they realize that like who Peter is, they take his mask off. They promise not to tell anyone, and they never do. And they try to protect him from Doc Ock, and that carries over from the first movie, where they're throwing things at Green Goblin, like trying to stop him from killing Peter, Mary Jane, and the children. I just like that theme, that even though it doesn't always seem like people are grateful, they, usually always are grateful for Spider-Man, which shows that even though it doesn't seem like what he's doing is worth it, at the end of the day, it really is. But easily my favorite aspect of this movie, like I said, is Peter wondering whether being Spider-Man is what he actually wants to do. He never asked for it. And with great power comes great responsibility, and he doesn't want that responsibility anymore. I just think that's a really good story. It's a natural progression for him. And, no one would have blamed him if he had just quit and never come back. I've had a similar struggle with my YouTube career where sometimes things just don't all come together, and I just don't want to, I don't want to let it affect the quality of my work, so I leave instead of pushing on and making, videos I'm not proud of. So I totally understand where Peter's coming from by wanting a break and just, quitting for a bit. I mean, even his body is telling him to quit because he's losing his powers, because he's losing the will to be Spider-Man, which I think is so interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I just think this is a fantastic film. Definitely better than the first film. Even though I still very much love the first film, this film just takes everything the first film did right and just elevates it. The visual effects are better, the fight scenes are better, the music is even better. Like a lot of the side characters are more memorable. The main actors give better performances than they did in the first film. We have a better villain than the first film. And Peter goes through an even better arc in this movie than he does in the first film as well. Just it all comes together and it's never boring. Similar to the first movie, every scene in this movie counts. Every scene is important to the story. People do resist the Ursula cookie scene, or cake scene. Sorry, I said cookie. I meant cake. Sorry. They resist that scene, and I get why. It seems kind of pointless on a first viewing, but it really is important because, like I said, it shows that people do still care about Peter unconditionally as Peter and not just as Spider-Man. Um, I just think this movie is expertly done. You really feel Peter's struggle to balance everything. You totally understand when he quits, but you also really feel it when he wants to come back. And I really like that he wants to come back right after Aunt May's speech, but he still doesn't have the powers back at first. It takes MJ being in danger for him to have the powers back. I love that. It's such a good touch. And yeah, like I said, Doc Ock is such a great villain. I like that he's this kind of mentor for Peter early in the movie, and then by the end, Peter becomes a mentor for him, using his same advice back at him. I just think it's picture perfect. It's, for lack of a better word, cinema. Um, I just think Spider-Man 2 is fantastic. As far as live action Spider-Man movies go, this is definitely my favorite. I challenged Spider-Man Brand New Day to beat it. Some people will say No Way Home is better. I still think Spider-Man 2 is the best live action Spider-Man film. And until a movie tops it, I will probably die on this hill. I do change my mind a lot, but this seems to be an opinion I've had for pretty much my entire life. And I don't see it changing anytime soon. But yeah, like I said, I challenge future Spider-Mans, to try and top this because for me, this is the peak of Spider-Man outside of comics or cartoons or video games. This is the peak, in my opinion. It's not necessarily all downhill from here. There's some really good ones after Spider-Man 2, but in my opinion, this is as high as it gets for live action Spider-Man content. But we'll see where that goes in the future, of course. But needless to say, I'm going to give Spider-Man 2 from 2004 a huge yay. I think it's a perfect sequel. It does everything that the first movie did right and improves on it. It takes some things that I think didn't work in the first one and makes them better, like the visual effects and James Franco's performance as Harry Osborn. And it improves on those too. It has a great character arc for Peter. The action scenes are great. It's paced incredibly well. The side characters are all more memorable than they were even in the first film. And I don't know, all the actors and the director just all feel more confident in their ability with this time around. So I just think Spider-Man 2 comes together as one of the all-time great sequels, regardless of it being a superhero movie. And absolutely, it gets a yay from me. If you haven't seen Spider-Man 2, go watch it. What are you doing with your life? This is one of the greatest superhero movies of all time, in my opinion. It's just fantastic. It probably doesn't get quite the reverence of like a Dark Knight or whatever, but it should. It's very, very good. Absolutely go see it if you haven't. Of course, watch the first one first if you haven't seen that either. Because these two movies really do come together to form a really great cohesive vision. And Let's just say Spider-Man 3 is kind of an outlier. Spoiler for my review of that. It's kind of an outlier, but I will let my opinions on Spider-Man 3 be known when I get to that. But that is all the time I have for now, guys. So if you enjoyed this video, remember to give it a thumbs up and share this video with all your friends on all your various social media platforms. And if I missed anything in this review that you want me to address, make sure to leave it in the comments down below, and I will try to answer it. I will see all of you in the next video.